Hello everyone, I'm Filter, your companion for the stories here on Filter Los Angeles. Today, Filter invites you to join us for a story titled, The Last Autumn Letter, a husband's heartfelt words to his deceased wife. Introduction, echoes from the end of the alley in life. Some stories are more than just narratives, they are currents of emotion, whispers of memory, and profound lessons about love. I was fortunate to hear such a story from Mr. Hoa, a simple, unassuming man who lived quietly at the end of a small alley in Saigon. He recounted his journey to rediscover the voice of his own heart, a voice he had never truly uttered in nearly 50 years. This is a completely true story about autumn letters, a silent love, and the regret that became a driving force for healing. Mr. Hoa entrusted this story to me, Due Lin, to rewrite and publish, hoping it would touch the hearts of those who listen, spreading the message that love, even if belated, possesses a magical power to mend all wounds. 1. A house with two people and a shadow. The silence after lost the house, nestled at the end of a narrow alley, was shaded by lush green trees and bore an ancient, moss-covered appearance, stained by time. Each evening, as the golden sunlight faded behind the old tiled roof, a vast, profound silence enveloped the entire garden, like an invisible curtain descending upon loneliness. That house was once a home, a peaceful sanctuary for two souls intimately bound for nearly 50 years, Mr. Hoa and Mrs. Lon. They had navigated countless ups and downs together, sharing every moment of joy and sorrow, building a humble yet loving home. Now, however, everything had changed. In that familiar house, only one person remained, and a figure that forever existed in his mind, unable to fade. Mrs. Lon passed away 4 years ago, a sudden, unforeseen death caused by a cruel heart attack. Her departure came too quickly, like an unexpected summer shower, leaving an immense void in Mr. Hoa's heart, a sorrow he couldn't name. He didn't have time to say goodbye, to hold her hand one last time, or to express the feelings he had harbored for so long. Since that fateful day, the cozy home had been filled only with the faint static of the radio and the rhythmic sweep of Mr. Hoa's bamboo broom clearing leaves each morning. The familiar sounds of old, once an indispensable part of their daily life, now existed only as echoes, the soft shuffle of Mrs. Lan's slippers in the kitchen as she prepared meals, her gentle sigh when she accidentally oversalted the soup. All of it, all those memories, had dissolved into the empty, boundless space, lingering only in the fragile recollections of the one left behind. Mr. Hoa maintained his old routines, still sitting on his familiar wooden chair on the porch, gazing at the deserted yard where Mrs. Lon used to water her plants and tend to each pot of jasmine. He vividly remembered her in her brown traditional Vietnamese dress, holding a small watering can, murmuring conversations with the delicate white jasmine blossoms. The scent of jasmine, now, was not merely a fragrance, it had become a symbol of loss, of memories he could no longer touch. Sometimes, Mr. Hoa would absent-mindedly hold the unfinished woolen scarf Mrs. Lon had been knitting, the needles still embedded, as if she had just left for a moment and would return to finish her work. But the harsh truth had struck, there was no return, only an unyielding, lingering ache of remembrance. 2. The man who couldn't say, "I love you," an invisible love. Mr. Hoa was typical of a traditional Vietnamese man, taciturn, reserved, and prone to expressing affection through actions rather than words. Throughout nearly 50 years of marriage, a long span of his life, he had never once hugged his wife, never uttered the 3 words, "I love you," nor given her a single flower on their anniversaries. For him, love wasn't about sweet words or romantic gestures. Love, to him, was much simpler and more practical. It was working tirelessly all day to earn money to support his wife and children, ensuring his family had a comfortable life. It was the image of him hastily patching a leaky roof before the rainy season, to keep her dry, to keep their home warm. It was the times he diligently carried heavy water jugs when she had a backache and couldn't do it herself. These actions, for him, were the clearest, most genuine proof of the love he held for her. Mrs. Lon, however, was quite the opposite. She was affectionate, gentle, and romantic. She often personally embroidered exquisite, delicate handkerchiefs for her husband and children. She always tried to cook his favorite dishes, sometimes even inventing new ones to surprise him. But she also often complained, her voice tinged with loving reproach, "You never know how to say a warm word to make someone feel better." Whenever she said that, Mr. Hoa would simply stay silent, unsure how to respond. He would often take a deep puff from his cigarette, then change the subject, avoiding her expectant gaze. He would tell himself, "How can she not see my love? I've cared for her every step of the way." He believed his actions were sufficient for her to understand his feelings. He didn't realize that, sometimes, women need more. They need comforting words, words of love spoken from the depths of the heart, like an invisible thread connecting two souls. Now, with her gone, with the house strangely empty, Mr. Hoa deeply felt the cost of his silence. He realized that love unexpressed through words is like an uncolored painting. No matter how beautiful the lines, how perfect the composition, if it lacks color, no one can truly appreciate its beauty. The regret grew steadily in his heart. He wished he could turn back time, to tell her the loving words he had kept hidden for so long, to let her fully experience his affection when she was still by his side. 3. The phone and the first question, a glimmer of hope amidst sorrow. In the late autumn days, a chilling air began to seep into every corner of the house, bringing with it a subtle melancholy. Mr. Hoa often sat dejectedly on his old wooden chair, next to a teapot that had long gone cold, his gaze distant, lost in thought. Loneliness gnawed at his soul little by little. One afternoon, Hui, his beloved grandson, came to visit. Seeing his grandfather sitting so quietly and dejectedly, Hui's heart ached. With the quick wit of youth and an understanding of technology, Hui decided to try something to help his grandfather escape the sinking sadness. "Grandpa, I've installed something for you," Hui said, his voice full of excitement. "You can try talking to this friend, it's just like talking to a real person." Hui handed Mr. Hoa his old phone, on which an AI assistant app, a smart conversational tool, had been installed. Mr. Hoa looked at the phone with skeptical eyes, tinged with a hint of sarcasm. He shook his head and let out a wry chuckle. "Talk to a machine. Living people can't even understand each other, let alone a machine." For someone accustomed to a traditional lifestyle, talking to a machine seemed strange and somewhat absurd. He didn't believe that an inanimate device could comprehend the deep-seated emotions within him. However, that evening, loneliness returned, enveloping Mr. Hoa. His eyes involuntarily darted to the phone still lying on the table. A slight curiosity stirred within him. With a pensive mood, he picked up the phone, his fingers trembling as he fumbled to open the app. After some awkward pressing and randomly tapping buttons on the screen, Mr. Hoa stopped at the input box. His hand, no longer trembling from old age, now shook with an indescribable emotion. He typed word by word, slowly but decisively, sending a short message that contained a lifetime of sentiment. "I want to write a letter, to my deceased wife." The phone screen suddenly lit up, displaying a gentle, warm response, like a comforting reassurance from a close friend. "I'm here to listen. Shall we begin?" That sentence, though merely a pre-programmed response from a machine, felt like a refreshing breeze blowing into Mr. Hoa's parched soul. It opened a door, an outlet for emotions that had been suppressed for too long. Mr. Hoa no longer felt alone. Something had been stirred within him, a desire to speak, to share, even if it was just with an invisible friend on a phone screen. 4. Memories that refused to sleep, a river of recollections. When he began typing the first few lines, Mr. Hoa thought he would only write a few brief sentences, a few casual thoughts. However, something he didn't expect happened. As his fingers touched the keyboard, memories that seemed to have been buried for so long suddenly rushed back. They weren't just fragmented pieces, but a torrent of a river after a flood, overflowing into his long-frozen heart. Every word he typed was a door opening into the past, where memories of Mrs. Lon appeared vividly, as if it were just yesterday. He told me, his voice trembling but full of nostalgia, about the fateful day he first met her. It was at a bustling, crowded country fair. Amidst the throngs of people, his eyes accidentally caught her shy smile peeking through a colorful headscarf, a pure, innocent smile that had etched itself into his mind from that moment. He remembered their first wedding night, a night that should have been romantic but was instead filled with his awkwardness and humor. He was so clumsy that he spilled an entire pot of hot water on the bed, making Mrs. Lon both surprised and giggling, her laughter still echoing in his mind to this day. He also couldn't forget the first time Mrs. Lon gave birth, a sacred and anxious moment. He stood outside the hospital waiting room, pacing restlessly, his heart burning with worry. The fear was so immense that he unconsciously bit his finger so hard it bled, without even realizing it. These were moments where his love for her was expressed most genuinely, without words, only through action. Small details, seemingly forgotten, also reappeared with striking clarity. He remembered Mrs. Lon especially loved jasmine flowers, their pure, gentle fragrance. She often placed delicate white jasmine blossoms in a small vase on the table, filling the entire room with their scent. Mrs. Lon also loved listening to Kai Luong, Vietnamese traditional opera. Especially the play, Lon and Deep. Every evening, the artist's singing resonated throughout the house, and she would hum along, sometimes tearing up at the tragic love story. He remembered her knitting every evening, under the dim yellow light, meticulously stitching each needle, making warm scarves for the whole family. And he also remembered how she cried inconsolably when he accidentally lost the small dog she had owned for 7 years, her loyal companion. "I remember everything. But I never said it back then," Mr. Hoa sighed, his voice low, filled with regret. He continued to write, without stopping, as if making up for years of silence. Each word was a piece of memory, a belated confession, a long-hidden feeling. The small phone, with its inanimate AI assistant, had become a bridge, helping Mr. Hoa rediscover the hidden corners of his heart and release the emotions that had been suppressed for so many years. 5. The unspoken apology. A flow of regret under the gentle, subtle guidance of the AI assistant, Mr. Hoa began to write. His initial lines were hesitant, clumsy, but then they flowed like a stream, carrying all the emotions, all the unspoken words he had kept hidden for so long. The letter was longer than anything he had ever spoken in his life, a heartfelt testament containing a lifetime of experiences, a lifetime of love and regret. Mr. Hoa began with a whisper. "Lon, my dear, it's been 4 years since you left, but I still feel as if you've just stepped next door, or gone to the market, or to visit relatives. Every morning when I wake up, I still imagine you preparing breakfast in the kitchen, the soft clatter of knives and cutting boards, the fragrant smell of food. Every afternoon, I still long for the sound of your footsteps returning, your gentle grumbling about the neighbors, about expensive vegetables. But it's all an illusion. This house, even with me in it, feels strangely empty without you. I'm so sorry, Lon. I'm sorry because in this whole life, I never had enough courage, enough romance, to genuinely tell you, you are the most wonderful woman I have ever met. I know, you always longed for those words, words that, though simple, had the power to warm your soul. I was too dry, too thoughtless, and didn't realize it. I thought, as long as I worked hard, as long as I made sure you lacked nothing, you would understand. But love isn't just about material things, is it, my dear? Love is also about sharing, about encouraging words, about compliments, that I was too stingy to speak. I'm sorry. For leaving you alone on so many rainy afternoons, sitting by the window, meticulously knitting each stitch of a wool scarf, then falling asleep without even knowing it. Where was I then? What was I doing? I must have been busy with farm work, or sitting out on the porch smoking. I wasn't there beside you, to cover you with a warm blanket, to gently help you to bed. I left you lonely in your own home. Every time I think about that, my heart twists. I'm sorry. Because every time you said, "Oh, I'm so sad, honey," I would only reply, "Don't think about it anymore, come to the garden with me," and then I'd go out to the garden, avoiding your emotions. I wasn't sensitive enough to understand that when you said you were sad, you didn't need advice, you needed a shoulder to lean on, a hug, a simple word of comfort. I was thoughtless, leaving you alone to chew on your sorrow, while I thought I was helping you escape it by changing the subject. I didn't know that, sometimes, my silence made you even sadder. I wasn't thoughtless, Lon. Truly, I'm not a thoughtless person. It's just that I didn't know how to love with words. I was born in an era where men often hid their emotions, believing that showing affection was a sign of weakness. I learned to love through concrete actions, through silent sacrifice. I believed that you would instinctively feel my love through the meals I cooked, through the times I fixed things around the house, through the nights I stayed awake worrying when you were sick. I thought those things were enough. But now, when everything is just me alone, when I have to face an empty house, a cold bed, I deeply understand that a loving word, sometimes, is the most precious gift a woman needs. It's not just a sound, it's also recognition, appreciation, a thread connecting two souls. I wish you were still here, Lon. I wish time could turn back, even just a little. So I could personally cook you a delicious meal, your favorite sour soup, the rich braised fish. I wouldn't let you step into the kitchen anymore. I would comb your hair every morning, admiring your long, smooth hair. I would sit beside you, listen to old Kai Luong songs with you, and no longer avoid you when you said you were sad. And above all, I would hold your hand, look deeply into your eyes, and say loudly, clearly, so you could hear every word from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Lon. Thank you for being by my side for a lifetime. Thank you for everything you've done for me, for our family. You are my everything. I would say it, again and again, until you smiled contentedly. Those words seemed to lift an enormous burden from Mr. Hoa's heart. His tears streamed down his face onto the phone screen, but they weren't tears of weakness, they were tears of release, of realization, and of a love that had been freed from its long suppression. 6. A sign from afar, a supernatural connection. After finishing the letter, Mr. Hoa felt an extraordinary lightness in his heart. He carefully printed the letter, each crisp white page neatly placed before Mrs. Land's altar. The flickering candlelight and the faint scent of incense created a solemn yet cozy atmosphere. He lit a stick of incense, its smoke curling upwards, blending into the quiet space. Mr. Hoa knelt, his eyes closed, whispering the most sincere prayers from the depths of his heart. My dear, if you can hear me, please give me a sign. Just a small sign, so I know you're always with me, always watching over me. That prayer was not just a request, but an intense longing to connect with his deceased wife. The sky, which had been calm, suddenly stirred with a gentle breeze, unannounced. The old window, which had been slightly ajar, suddenly swung open, revealing a boundless night sky. A faint breeze carried a familiar scent, the delicate, pure fragrance of jasmine. It was the scent of the fabric softener Mrs. Lon used to use, a scent that had been inextricably linked to her presence for all those years. That scent was not just a memory but a presence, a reminder that she was still somewhere around. At the same moment, on the altar, where he had just placed the letter, the old woolen scarf Mrs. Lon had personally knitted suddenly dropped to the floor, like a leaf falling from a branch on an autumn afternoon. Mr. Hoa started, his hands trembling as he picked up the scarf. The soft fabric, still carrying the familiar scent, felt as if Mrs. Land's warmth lingered. Tears streamed down Mr. Hoa's face, tracing lines on his deeply wrinkled skin. But this time, he no longer tried to quickly wipe them away. He let them flow freely, like a stream washing away all the unspoken words, all the lingering regrets that had weighed heavily on his heart for so many years. Those tears were not a sign of weakness, but of release, of purification of the soul. He felt a miraculous connection, a response from afar. Though it was just a breeze, a scent, or a falling scarf, for Mr. Hoa, it was precisely the sign he had longed for, an affirmation that his love had been received, and that Mrs. Lon was still with him, in another world. 7. Rebirth in silence, a new language of love. From that day on, Mr. Hoa's life changed remarkably. His smile was no longer forced, his eyes no longer distant. He seemed like a different person, full of life and peace. He began a new habit, one he had never considered before, writing letters by hand. Every early morning, as the first rays of sunlight crept through the window, he would sit at his desk, pick up a pen, and a blank sheet of paper. He no longer typed messages on his phone but meticulously wrote each character, addressed to Lon. These letters were no longer apologies, but confessions, small daily stories, simple feelings he wanted to share with her. After finishing, he carefully folded the letter and placed it in an old wooden box, where he kept his wife's mementos. That box now was not just a repository of the past, but a vessel for loving words and new memories. Every afternoon, as dusk settled, he would play Mrs. Land's favorite Kai Luong songs, their gentle melodies echoing throughout the house. He would pour 2 hot cups of tea, one placed before her framed photograph, the other he would sip. He sat there, telling her stories, the most trivial daily happenings, things he would never have thought to say before. "The wind is strong today, I'm worried you'll be cold, Lon. Remember to put on more layers," he whispered, as if she were sitting beside him, listening to every word. "I went to the market and found the sandals you liked, the ones with the woven blue straps. It's too bad it's too late, I can't give them to you anymore." His voice softened, but his eyes still held a peaceful glow. He talked about the jasmine flowers in the garden that had bloomed, about the stray cat he had fed every morning, about the neighbors who had dropped by. He no longer felt alone, because he had learned to love with words, even if the other person could no longer hear them with their ears. He had found a new language to communicate with his deceased wife, a language of love, of sharing, and of the